The Ganges, Ganga, River is a sacred body of water to Hindus that begins high in the Himalaya Mountains and empties out into the Bay of Bengal. The surrounding river basin has a population of more than 400 million people. The Ganges, Ganga, River runs through northern India and is sacred to those who follow Hinduism. More than 400 million people in India live in the area that feeds the river, known as the Ganges River Basin. A river basin is a region that is drained by a river, such as the Ganges, and any of its tributaries. This means that surface water and rainwater in the basin area flow into the nearby rivers. The Ganges River originates in the Himalaya Mountains at Gomukh, the terminus of the Gongotri Glacier. When the ice of this glacier melts, it forms the clear waters of the Bhagirathi River. As the Bhagirathi River flows down the Himalayas, it joins the Alaknanda River, officially forming the Ganges River. The Ganges River Basin is sometimes considered part of a larger river basin consisting of the nearby Brahmaputra and Meghna rivers. Known as the Ganges-Brahmaputra-Meghna, GBM, river basin, it is one of the largest river systems in the world. The melting water from the Himalayas, as well as water from tributaries and rainfall, all feed the sacred river. The Ganges flows south and east from the Himalayas, forming a canyon as it leaves the mountain. It winds its way through northern India, eventually emptying into the Bay of Bengal. The Ganges' many tributaries originate from the nearby countries of Nepal, Bangladesh, and China, in an autonomous region called Tibet. The Ganges River carries nutrient-rich sediment as it flows, depositing fertile soil along its shores. This has allowed civilizations to develop and thrive along the waterway for centuries. Today, the river flows through well-populated regions of India, providing fresh water to the millions of people living in these regions. The river is also used for fishing, irrigation, and bathing, and it is worshipped in the Hindu religion as the Mother Ganga. As the river empties into the Bay of Bengal, the mouth forms the Ganges River Delta, the largest river delta in the world. The Ganges River is a vital resource to Asia, but it faces many threats. Human and industrial pollutants fill the river in some areas, making it unsafe even for swimming. As the population in regions surrounding the river swells, water demands for agriculture increases, straining water levels. Adding further stress to the situation, scientists have concluded that climate change has led to a decrease in glacial ice in the Himalayas, the source of the Ganges, and theorize this will result in further decreased water levels in the river over time. The Ganges River in India is more than 2,500 kilometers long and has the most populated river basin in the world. Hundreds of millions of people and a huge range of wildlife rely on the river Ganges. But pollution, dams and removal of too much water, mostly for agriculture, have affected the flow and health of this vital river. One of the river's most at-risk animals is the Ganges River dolphin. There used to be tens of thousands of them, but now only around 1,200 to 1,800 are left in the river. Biggest threats to them include fishing, they're targeted for their oily blubber, as well as toxic pollution, dams and barrages in the river. Ganges River, Great River of the plains of the northern Indian subcontinent. Although officially as well as popularly called the Ganga in Hindi and in other Indian languages, internationally it is known by its conventional name, the Ganges. From time immemorial it has been the holy river of Hinduism. For most of its course it is a wide and sluggish stream, flowing through one of the most fertile and densely populated regions in the world. Despite its importance, its length of 1,560 miles, 2,510 kilometers, is relatively short compared with the other great rivers of Asia or of the world. Rising in the Himalayas and emptying into the Bay of Bengal, it drains 1/4 of the territory of India, and its basin supports hundreds of millions of people. The greater part of the Indo-Gangetic plain, across which it flows, is the heartland of the region known as Hindustan and has been the cradle of successive civilizations from the Mauryan Empire of Ashoka in the 3rd century BCE to the Mughal Empire, founded in the 16th century. For most of its course the Ganges flows through Indian territory, although its large delta in the Bengal area, which it shares with the Brahmaputra River, lies mostly in Bangladesh. The general direction of the river's flow is from northwest to southeast. At its delta the flow is generally southward. The Ganges rises in the southern Great Himalayas on the Indian side of the border with the Tibet Autonomous Region of China. Its 5 head streams, the Bhagirathi, the Alaknanda, the Mandakini, the Dhalaganga, and the Pindar, all rise in the mountainous region of northern Uttarakhand state. Of those, the 2 main head streams are the Alaknanda, the longer of the two, which rises about 30 miles, 50 kilometers, north of the Himalayan peak of Nanda Devi, and the Bhagirathi, which originates at about 10,000 feet, 3,000 meters, above sea level in a subglacial meltwater cave at the base of the Himalayan glacier known as Gongotri. Gongotri itself is a sacred place for Hindu pilgrimage. The true source of the Ganges, however, is considered to be at Gomukh, about 13 miles, 21 kilometers, southeast of Gongotri. The Alaknanda and Bhagirathi rivers unite at Devaprayag to form the main stream known as the Ganga, which cuts southwestward through the Siwalik Range, outer Himalayas, at the northern edge of the Indo-Gangetic plain to emerge from the mountains at Rishikesh. It then flows onto the plain at Haridwar, another place held sacred by Hindus. The volume of the Ganges increases markedly as it receives more tributaries and enters a region of heavier rainfall, and it shows a marked seasonal variation in flow. From April to June the melting Himalayan snows feed the river, and in the rainy season, from July to September, the rain-bearing monsoons cause floods. During winter the river's flow declines. South of Haridwar, now within the state of Uttar Pradesh, the river receives its 2 principal right bank tributaries, the Yamuna River, which flows through the Delhi capital region and then roughly parallels the southeastward flow of the Ganges before joining it near Prayagraj, Allahabad, and the Tons, which flows north from the Vindhya range in Madhya Pradesh state and joins the Ganges just below Prayagraj. The main left bank tributaries in Uttar Pradesh are the Ramganga, the Gomukh, and the Ghaghara. The Ganges next enters the state of Bihar, where its main tributaries from the Himalayan region of Nepal to the north are the Gandak, the Buri, Old, Gandak, the Gugri, and the Kosi rivers. Its most important southern tributary is the Sun River. The river then skirts the Rajmahal Hills to the south and flows southeast to Farakka in central West Bengal state, at the apex of the delta. West Bengal is the last Indian state that the Ganges enters, and, after it flows into Bangladesh, the Mahananda River joins it from the north. In West Bengal in India, as well as in Bangladesh, the Ganges is locally called the Padma. The westernmost distributaries of the delta are the Bhagirathi and the Hooghly rivers, on the east bank of which stands the huge metropolis of Kolkata, Calcutta. The Hooghly itself is joined by 2 tributaries flowing in from the west, the Damodar and the Rupnarayan. As the Ganges passes from West Bengal into Bangladesh, a number of distributaries branch off to the south into the river's vast delta. In Bangladesh the Ganges is joined by the mighty Brahmaputra, which is called the Jamuna in Bangladesh, near Golandu Ghat. The combined stream, there called the Padma, joins with the Meghna River above Chandapur. The waters then flow through the delta region to the Bay of Bengal via innumerable channels, the largest of which is known as the Meghna estuary. The Ganges-Brahmaputra system has the 3rd greatest average discharge of the world's rivers, at roughly 1,086,500 cubic feet, 30,770 cubic meters, per second, approximately 390,000 cubic feet, 11,000 cubic meters, per second is supplied by the Ganges alone. The river's combined suspended sediment load of about 1.84 billion tons per year is the world's highest. Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, stands on the Buri Ganga, Old Ganges, a tributary of the Dhaleswari. Apart from the Hooghly and the Meghna, the other distributary streams that form the Ganges Delta are, in West Bengal, the Jalangai River and, in Bangladesh, the Matabhanga, Barab, Kabadak, Garai-Mudumti, and Ariel Khan rivers. The Ganges, as well as its tributaries and distributaries, is constantly vulnerable to changes in its course in the delta region. Such changes have occurred in comparatively recent times, especially since 1750. In 1785 the Brahmaputra flowed past the city of Mymensingh. It now flows more than 40 miles, 65 kilometers, west of it before joining the Ganges. The delta, the seaward prolongation of sediment deposits from the Ganges and Brahmaputra river valleys, is about 220 miles, 355 kilometers, along the coast and covers an area of some 23,000 square miles, 60,000 square km. It is composed of repeated alternations of clays, sands, and marls, with recurring layers of peat, lignite, and beds of what were once forests. The new deposits of the delta, known in Hindi and Urdu as the Khadar, naturally occur in the vicinity of the present channels. The delta's growth is dominated by tidal processes. The southern surface of the Ganges Delta has been formed by the rapid and comparatively recent deposition of enormous loads of sediment. To the east the seaward side of the delta is being changed at a rapid rate by the formation of new lands, known as chars, and new islands. The western coastline of the delta, however, has remained practically unchanged since the 18th century. The rivers in the West Bengal area are sluggish, little water passes down them to the sea. In the Bangladesh Delta region, the rivers are broad and active, carrying plentiful water and connected by innumerable creeks. During the rains, June to October, the greater part of the region is flooded to a depth of 3 or more feet, at least 1 meter, leaving the villages and homesteads, which are built on artificially raised land, isolated above the flood waters. Communication between settlements during that season can be accomplished only by boat. To the seaward side of the delta as a whole, there is a vast stretch of tidal mangrove forests and swampland. The region, called the Sundarbans, is protected by India and Bangladesh for conservation purposes. Each country's portion of the Sundarbans has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, India's in 1987 and Bangladesh's in 1997. In certain parts of the delta there occur layers of peat, composed of the remains of forest vegetation and rice plants. In many natural depressions, known as bills, peat, still in the process of formation, has been used as a fertilizer by local farmers, and it has been dried and used as a domestic and industrial fuel. Use of the Ganges water for irrigation, either when the river is in flood or by means of gravity canals, has been common since ancient times. Such irrigation is described in scriptures and mythological books written more than 2,000 years ago. Megasthenes, a Greek historian and ambassador who was in India, recorded the use of irrigation in the 4th century BCE. Irrigation was highly developed during the period of Muslim rule from the 12th century onward, and the Mughal kings later constructed several canals. The canal system was further extended by the British. The cultivated area of the Ganges Valley in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar benefits from a system of irrigation canals that has increased the production of such cash crops as sugarcane, cotton, and oilseeds. The older canals are mainly in the Ganges-Yamuna Dub meaning land between two rivers. The Upper Ganga Canal, which begins at Hardwar, and its branches have a combined length of 5,950 miles, 9,575 kilometers. The Lower Ganga Canal, extending 5,120 miles, 8,240 kilometers, with its branches, begins at Nehra. The Sarda Canal irrigates land near Ayodhya, in Uttar Pradesh. Higher lands at the northern edge of the plain are difficult to irrigate by canal, and groundwater must be pumped to the surface. Large areas in Uttar Pradesh and in Bihar are also irrigated by channels running from hand-dug wells. The Ganges Kabadak scheme in Bangladesh, largely an irrigation plan, covers parts of the districts of Khulna, Jessore, and Kushtia that lie within the part of the delta where silt and overgrowth choke the slowly flowing rivers. The system of irrigation is based on both gravity canals and electrically powered lifting devices. In ancient times the Ganges and some of its tributaries, especially in the east, were important transportation routes. According to Megasthenes, the Ganges and its main tributaries were being navigated in the 4th century BCE. In the 14th century, inland river navigation in the Ganges Basin was still flourishing. By the 19th century, irrigation-cum-navigation canals formed the main arteries of the water transport system. The advent of paddle steamers revolutionized inland transport, stimulating the growth of indigo production in Bihar and Bengal. Regular steamer services ran from Kolkata up the Ganges to Prayagraj and far beyond, as well as to Agra on the Yamuna and up the Brahmaputra River. The decline of large-scale water transport began with the construction of railways during the mid-19th century. The increasing withdrawal of water for irrigation also affected navigation. River traffic now is insignificant beyond the middle Ganges Basin around Prayagraj, mainly consisting of rural river craft, including motorboats, sailboats, and rafts. West Bengal and Bangladesh, however, continue to rely on the waterways to transport jute, tea, grain, and other agricultural and rural products. Principal river ports are Halna, Khulna, Barisal, Chandapur, Narayanganj, Golandugad, Sarajanj, Barab Bazar, and Fenchuganj in Bangladesh and Kolkata, Golpara, Dhubari, and Dibrugarh in India. The hydroelectric potential of the Ganges and its tributaries is enormous. Estimates have ranged from some 51,700 to 128,700 megawatts, of which about 2/5 lies within India and the rest in Nepal. Some of that potential has been exploited in India, including hydroelectric developments on headwater tributaries of the Ganges in Uttarakhand, example the Bhagirathi and Alaknanda rivers, on the upper Yamuna River and its tributaries in Himachal Pradesh, and, farther downstream, in the Ganges Basin along the Chambal, a right bank tributary of the Yamuna, and Rihand rivers. Only a tiny fraction of Nepal's hydroelectric generating capacity has been exploited. Concern has grown over the environmental impact of hydroelectric dams, including habitat destruction for wildlife, terrestrial and aquatic, forced relocation of people living in the paths of dams and reservoirs, loss of agricultural land, and disruption of water supplies for inhabitants near the completed dams. Some have called for reductions in the amount of power generated, redesigning dams to make them and their impounded reservoirs less intrusive, and even moratoriums on future dam construction in some areas. Thank you for watching this video.